Hey guys, GhazzyTV here with another Path of Exile video. I'm going to talk about real quick about the 3.20 Balance Manifesto, talking about curses. Now, we've been reading through this post and the TLDR doesn't really do it justice, so I'm going to give you guys the TLDR from my perspective. The hidden curse effectiveness reduction versus rares 33% and bosses 66% from hex curses are now being removed. This allows us to finally look at the option of using hex curses instead of mark curses for your build versus the endgame boss mechanics. I think this is an expected and a long overdue kind of change when it comes to curses. They're also removing the Doom mechanic, and then they're going to be making changes to Doom related mechanics in the game to compensate for this. And on top of this, they're buffing things like Enfeeble and Temporal Chain, so that these things will actually be something will be more attractive versus endgame bosses to significantly lower their action speed, which will be very interesting to see how and to what extent people will utilize these defensive mechanics, or curses in this case, versus those type of bosses and how that will actually behave. I'm actually quite excited about that specifically. Besides this, they're making some other changes, such as the removal of curse effectiveness from a lot of aspects of the game. Especially the ascendancy of Occultist, and again forcing us into the idea of doing more self-casting than we are to automating these casts. The automations such as the curse and hit or the blasphemy is going to be reduced effectiveness of your curses, so to keep in line that you can automate it just to have the curse of a weaker version, but they will also be stronger because against bosses because of the reduced effectiveness of these fights, right? So I think that we have to look at the aspect of why we're automating the curses. One, of course, is the quality of life of not needing to cast another ability because they're automated, right? That's one reason. The other reason is for builds that utilizes the explosion, such as Profane Bloom, for example, where enemies needs to be cursed before we kill them so that they explode. Now, that's not going to change. It's just that we're going to want to automate it to make sure that everything we touch is going to be cursed if we have mechanics that are playing with the enemy that we're killing is supposed to be cursed, because no one's going to want to cast several curses before casting or killing, attacking, or whatever they're doing with their build. However, single targets or boss fight reductions of curses being removed literally opens up a slight concern. I saw it on Reddit earlier. I think it might have been Jungron actually pointing it out. I think he was joking about it a little bit, but after giving it some thought and now finally reading the manifesto, I can definitely see people having a gem swap or a weapon swap and having their curse in the weapons and just swapping over to cursing a boss with a weapon swap, and then switching over to the regular build to kill the boss or whatever. I think that could actually be something we'll see with the efficiency that we can bring to the table utilizing curses for the endgame pinnacle bosses now. Not saying that's gonna happen. I'm definitely saying that it's something that I myself at least will keep in mind when it comes to it, because it is seemingly an option, no matter if it's a joke or not. It actually seems like an option. I don't think anyone actually will in the end, but it will definitely be something that I'll look at when we get all the details. I found it rather amusing because it really feels like they're trying to step away from making people automate things, because the way the Path of Exile works is that the more things you can automate, the more smooth your build is, and they're trying to force us into a way of playing that we don't really want to. Most people want to have speed. They want to have as few buttons to press as possible and just go about their mapping as fast as they can, whilst GGG are trying to balance the game to the point where the option to have a play style that does not provide these quality of lives, that forces you to self-cast things, will be more attractive to basically make them more stronger. And I know that a lot of us bossing characters or bossing players that wants to do endgame bosses a lot, we always look at the numerical values. If it is better for us to self-cast, we are very likely going to do so, simply to min-max the number output that we're doing. But I mean, we're definitely going to be looking at ways of automating that as well, to be fair. I mean, if I can make a Bane apply all my curses, then obviously I will do that. If I can have an Arcanist brand cast the curses for me, yeah, of course I'll do that. Unless, of course, they're going to reduce the efficiency of the curses, obviously. but we'll see how it turns out with all the changes. They're introducing some pretty cool things, such as the new rain, the anathema, allowing us to have our curse limit being equal to our maximum power charge instead. It's a pretty cool ring. I think it could be really nice to use in general, depending on the build. And if you're able to benefit from a lot of different curses, like if you do an elemental based build, you can have elemental weakness plus whatever elemental specific curse, and then potentially something like a defensive curse, like for enfeeble or temporal chains as an example. But some builds, or most builds, usually only benefits from one mark or maybe even 2 marks, but you can only apply 1, and then having 1 or 2 hex curses on top of that. So most builds don't really need to apply a ton of curses. They're making some changes to the Heretic Veil as well, increasing the level of curse gems and increasing the efficiency of our aura reservation by another 10%. But the Blasphemy is going to be nerfed with a reduced efficiency of curses. So I don't know, it's a little bit hard to tell how effective this will be in comparison to triggering or automating our curses based on the patch notes. So it'll be interesting to see the patch notes for this. But I will say though, and underline the fact that I feel a lot like GGG is trying to force us into a type of play style that seemingly is not the kind of play style a vast majority of the player base wants to play, because quality of life and making things easier has been a very big goal for a lot of characters. And now to compare that or bring that into the whole minion topic, as I do a lot of minion stuff with my channel and my content, the first thing we want to do is automate as many things as possible, because it actually removes the amount of skills we have to use, because minion builds are actually among the builds that clicks the most buttons when you're playing. We have Convocation, we have Predator, we have our curses, we have our offering, we have our Desecrate, we have our defensive skill, and we have our mobility skill. And as soon as we get a trigger one, for example, the first thing that happens is that we're automating our Desecrate and our offering. Suddenly there's 2 skills that we no longer have to think about. And the more things we can remove from the list of skills we have to use, such as cursing, the better it is in general. So that's why automation is very helpful for those type of builds. But with these changes, we are now going to be less inclined to actually automate those things, because there should be seemingly a massive difference between automating it and not automating it, pending patch notes, obviously. They are making some changes to things like Despair, which was mentioned. If I can get to the right page there, Despair. I can't spell there, Despair. So in here, they're making some changes to Vulnerability and Despair. Basically, they are going to make stat changes to them, because if you look at Despair as an example, they said that in the changes that they want to make level 1 curses compared to level 20 curses should be 2 times better at level 20 approximately across the board, right? Despair at level 20, it gives you 29% reduced chaos res, 25% increased dot damage, but also a massive amount of added flat chaos damage taken when you're hitting them, right? Level 1 has almost no flat damage compared to level 20, but it's only 9% worse on the chaos res and 10% worse on the dot damage. So it will be rather interesting to see what they're actually going to do in terms of changing the Despair curse. And it's very similar when it comes to vulnerability. When it comes to the changes, where increased physical damage level 1 is 30%, whereas level 20 is only 39%. The difference with vulnerability here is that a level 1 of vulnerability versus level 20 is very little. The difference is almost nothing. And in here, the change is expected to be very straightforward and very linear, because in the vulnerabilities case, all they need to do is adjust the percent scaling that they're getting, and therefore having a worse level 1 vulnerability. Whilst in Despair, the biggest difference on the curse is the flat one, and most people using Despair wants to use it for either the dot or just straight up for the chaos resistances. So I'm not sure if they're going to buff the added flat and then nerf the percent of dot and the resistances. Not really sure what they're going to plan to do with it. Either way, I think that it's definitely going to affect builds such as Dark Pact, for example, to want to be more inclined to self-cast a curse rather than doing it the way I've been doing it with my Dark Pact character, which is actually letting my Animate Guardian apply the Despair through a curse and hit gloves and a pair of Wind Shriek boots, for example. So it'll be interesting to see, but again, without seeing the patch notes, it's impossible for us to tell which one will be the most effective for us to play with. I think that the idea of the curses is a step in a good direction by removing the complex mechanic of Doom, as well as removing the hidden monster penalties of curses, making the curses actually valuable versus endgame bosses, where they matter the most. And we don't really care about the other stages of cursing enemies that are not bosses, such as white or magic monsters, but you can still automate those for things for the purpose of utilizing Profane Bloom as an example. I know how I feel about it specifically, or what it will actually mean till I see the details and patch notes, but I am actually rather interested in seeing where it will land, simply because I do firmly believe that this is a good change in the longevity, or for the longevity of the game, but how it will affect the meta of how we look at curses will be rather interesting. Anyways, that's all I have to say about it. I think we need more information in the patch notes to be able to verify if this is good or bad, which is kind of the ongoing theme right now with a lot of these manifestos. But let me know in the comments below what you think about these changes. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe for more content, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Till then, stay safe and keep rocking.